What if the very act of understanding the world tears you apart? Some people fear the dark, but the ones who lose their minds. They're the ones who saw too much light. Not physical light, but piercing mental clarity. A vision that burns through illusions, through comfort, through the sweet lies that let most people sleep at night. Nietzsche saw too clearly, and he wasn't alone. We often imagine madness as chaos, a storm, a shattering. But sometimes madness is a mirror that reflects the world without filters, and the human soul crumbles in response. Before Nietzsche collapsed on a street in Turin, weeping in the arms of a beaten horse, others had walked the edge of that same abyss. Heraclitus, the ancient Greek philosopher, wept for humanity, calling them blind to truth. Pascal, the child prodigy, became paralyzed by the silence of infinity. John Stuart Mill, trained to be a thinking machine, broke down at 20 and confessed he no longer knew why anything mattered. These weren't weak minds. They were brilliant. Too brilliant. The deeper they saw into the machinery of existence, the more alienated they became. Clarity, it turns out, is no blessing. It is a fire, and those who fly too close either become something new or burn. Nietzsche did both, and in his burning, he left behind a terrifying legacy. When you kill a god, you inherit the silence. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't celebrate the death of God. He grieved it. Behind his bold, infamous words was not arrogance, but dread. He saw the slow crumbling of the moral scaffolding that held Western civilization together. Faith was eroding. Tradition was fading. Certainty was dying, and in its place, nothing. Nietzsche wasn't trying to destroy meaning. He was trying to warn us we were already doing it. God is dead, he wrote, and we have killed him. But few read the next part. Who will wipe this blood off us? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Because once you erase the divine, someone or something must take its place. Nietzsche envisioned the Übermensch, the overman, a future human capable of creating their own values without delusion, without divine approval, someone strong enough to stand on meaningless ground and still build a life of depth, risk, and beauty. But the weight of that vision broke him because he realized we weren't ready. Society, politics, even science, they were built on inherited beliefs. Remove the core, and the rest wobbles. And for Nietzsche, that wobble became a spiral. His health failed. His thoughts became fragmented. His vision, too much for even himself. He didn't just stare into the abyss. He lived in it, and it stared back, silently, as his mind unraveled. The mind, when turned inward too deeply, becomes its own predator. By the late 1880s, Nietzsche's writing had taken on a strange brilliance, fierce, poetic, prophetic. But something had changed. The edges were sharper, the thoughts more fragmented, as if his mind was racing faster than language could keep up. He wrote of eternal recurrence, the terrifying idea that we live the same life over and over endlessly. No afterlife, no redemption, just infinite repetition of every joy, every regret, every pain. Would you live this life again and again and again, exactly the same? It wasn't just a thought experiment. It was a psychological weapon. A mirror he turned on himself. And perhaps it cracked. His letters grew wild. He signed them Dionysus, the god of madness, and the crucified. He believed himself both savior and sacrifice. He sent letters to kings, to friends, to enemies, proclaiming the end of morality, the dawn of a new age. But there was no new age, only silence. In 1889, On a street in Turin, Nietzsche saw a horse being whipped. He rushed to it, weeping, and collapsed in its embrace. He never returned from that moment. His mind shut down. His body lived on, but his voice vanished. It's easy to call it madness. Harder to admit it might be clarity without a place. To go, he saw too far, too deep. And in the absence of illusions, even genius can fall to pieces. What happens when the mind outruns the world it belongs to? After the collapse in Turin, Nietzsche never wrote another word. His thoughts, once volcanic and world-shaking, were locked inside a silent body. The man who tried to rewrite the foundations of human value spent over a decade in mental stillness. Some say it was syphilis, others, a hereditary condition. But explanations feel like shortcuts, ways to avoid confronting the deeper question. What if his mind simply could no longer bear the burden of its own clarity? Nietzsche didn't go insane because he was lost in delusion. He fractured under the pressure of seeing the world too truly, too nakedly. He stripped away comfort, tradition, certainty, and found a void staring back. And he dared to write from within that void. His warnings were never prescriptions. They were alarms. He wasn't telling us what to do. He was showing us what it costs to dismantle illusions without building something stronger in their place. He was never just a philosopher. He was a mirror. And what he reflected was too much for most to bear. Even now, we struggle to hold his gaze, because Nietzsche wasn't trying to destroy meaning. He was trying to force us to grow up, to outgrow borrowed beliefs and birth our own. But the labor is painful, and not everyone survives it. In the end, he gave us a map. But he never reached the destination himself. His voice is gone. But his fire still burns in the minds willing to face the world without a mask. Final call to action. Screen fades to black. Words appear slowly. Look too deeply, and the world changes. Look honestly, and you might never be the same.